all the speakers have 5 minutes for this initial bit.
So I am Thibault, autist in an autistic play group in France. We defend disability rights in France and independent living for all autistic people. And we try to build a community within a neurodiversity framework. So I am the co-founder and the communication officer today. For me, so independent living, I speak so for autistic people and our members. It doesn't mean independent because we are all interdependent, but I know it means that we can control our life and our support, and that we can take decisions about ourselves and our life. So for autistic people, it's more because I am going to talk later on about our needs, but our society is not fitted on our needs. Needs are fitted on neurotypical and able-bodied people for sure, but non-speaking autistic people, for instance, need specific communications tools or support to communicate. And I don't know, it's really a special need, it's more a different way of communication because every human can communicate, but it's different. And so I think independent living, it will be good for us if there is a more suitable environment that includes all kinds of supports and hopefully for everybody. But about the biggest challenge in France, I will speak for France because it's a major challenge for personal assistance or independent living. I think we are left behind. Many disability politics are basically based on institutions. It's a norm, and especially for intellectual disabled people, for autistic people, for mentally disabled people, they are destined for life in a institution. Education is poorly inclusive. There is a lack of community service, and we struggle for personal assistance. And for instance, it's 6 hours or 10 hours, but it's not enough for us to live in our own housing for some autistic people. And to illustrate the debates about independent living, 2 months ago, a French deputy, left-wing deputy, wrote a report for the French parliament and told that he wants to remove a right to recruit, train, and manage personal assistance because he prefers charity or care worker. And he justifies this measure because disabled people and elderly people are too vulnerable and debating to manage the assistance. So anyway, our politics don't consider we have a legal capacity, and legal capacity is not for autistic people, no speaking autistic people, and we cannot manage. So they consider that, and so it's the biggest challenge in France. I think it's the legal capacity at first, and take our decision in our life and more service to enjoy it. That's good.
Thank you very much, Thibault, for this initial comment. So not very
it's a spectrum, and so there are different assessments and different level of support. There are social and communication issues, and we prefer sameness and specific interests. And so it's a complex disability. It's not negative, but just sometimes we have sensory issues, and we don't understand our own feelings. We don't know always our own body, and we need to learn about us and between us at first. And there is also several and different disabilities that can be associated with autism: intellectual disability, language impairment, other development disability, or psychosocial disabilities. So assessments will be different for that, and we need to distinguish all these conditions to get the assessments. And often caretaker in institutions, doctor, don't understand and say that is a problem of autism. Situation in France is particular because we have also issues with the views and the care of autism. It's not adapted, it's not fit, it's not adapted for autistic people, and sometimes it's really outdated views. So autistic people are faced with many barriers, such as knowledge about them. I think it's a good point. The misunderstanding of their needs, society without accommodation, obviously, but politics promote autonomy also, but ablaze autonomy. For instance, most of treatments for autism are based on the modification of behavior. So it's a rehabilitation model. Caretaker and parents want that autistic people become independent, but as non-disabled people. And that's why I think it's considered as between intellectual disability and mental disease, because there is no cure, but the parents want to improve autism. So it's in between. And civil rights are known for autistic peoples, and I think that it's common in Europe. This point also they are perceived as the lack of skills. Professional doctors think they have no skills, so we can remove the legal capacity. And so the third challenge is a conceptualization of autism and its understanding to get the good needs, access needs, and reduce troubles. So, for instance, many troubles such as challenging behavior are caused by this lack of understanding. Often, some social issues are well taken in account in institutions. And but I think only autistic people can talk or type about that. And the second challenge is to access to independent living, but to design community service and communication tools to support most of autistic people in community. And many autistic people in a situation anyway have bad support or without support. And I think, for instance, personal assistance is not designed for autistic people, but I think there are many reasons that can justify personal assistance. For instance, we have different needs, but we have in common sameness, specific interests, need of a schedule, and these needs can be supported by personal assistance, because, for instance, if one of the people, one of the guy has complex needs, for instance, he wants to go out to his favorite cafe, he will be faced with much distress in the streets, in the environment. So often it's the noise, it's a wild guy, it's cars, many factors. And so social model of disability, I think, is not about accommodation in the environment, but it's on personal assistance, because we cannot remove, of course, all that in the streets, but a personal assistant is a human close to us, and we can interact with him, and it can be more safer, and adapted. And also, autistic people learn better one-to-one, one interaction with one people. And so I think it will be a good support for autistic people. But the challenge is that parents they prefer to modify the behavior in order to be independent, but I think it doesn't work. It's not really a solution. And also, there also the way politics way, because actually we have not more 10 hours of support, so it's not really accessible for no speaking autistic people. And we have not communication tools anyway. So there is a personal assistance and also communication tools that we can develop to know the access needs of more autistic people and the ways to ensure independent living. And after, in the end, of course, the work also is to get job is also an issue and challenge, because most of autistic people, I think, have no job, but they can work for them mostly. So it's also a challenge. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Thibault. There's quite a few parallels with what Jolijn was sharing as well, with sort of the role of the so-called treatment or trying to cure a condition. And I think that is, it's interesting also that